Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 270. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling pretty good. I am very excited for this workout and looking forward to it. But anyways, to the main subject matter at hand. Excuse makers. So I briefly touched upon this in this episode right here about my thyroid, and main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I don't like them. I don't like excuse makers. All right, I understand why they exist. I understand how they exist. Hell, I've been occasionally an excuse maker myself, but personally, they bug me. There are definitely people that cannot take accountability, and people that cannot take accountability are not usually good people. Now, obviously, there are some people who take too much accountability, which is a weird dynamic, but it's very few and far between where you don't even have to worry about those types of people. Because realistically, if they are taking too much accountability for themselves and maybe the world around them, they have a little bit of a different issue, which is a whole other thing. It's not necessarily excuses. I'm talking about the people who have no accountability whatsoever. So then thus there isn't even a baseline where they are even close to getting to too much. They're not even at normal, you know? So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about those who will find something that's wrong and then do absolutely nothing about it, and or just give random excuses in order to get themselves to feel better about certain situations, about maybe what they're doing or habits or anything like that. Because most of the time, it's a very interesting subject matter to go down, especially if you look into some of these coping mechanisms people will have. So I just wanted to get into that. Maybe this is just going to be a general overview of the idea. What are some common excuses that people do for certain things. Maybe I'll focus on a couple of other things like weight loss, because weight loss is one that's always like the same four things. Financial literacy, they're always the same 4 to 5 things. It's literally like once you get to one subject matter, it's usually like a bingo list of like things that will be excuses immediately. It was my birthday month. I don't want to have an eating disorder. Who has time to cook for yourself? Eating out is way faster and cheaper too. I was feeling down. I wanted to buy something. It's a bunch of stuff like that. And we'll get into all of those details and maybe a couple other things of how I feel about these people personally on a personal level, because, I dislike you if you're like this, but we'll talk more about that and probably use a little bit stronger language when we get to Mother Base. Alright, so start this day off with the single arm lat pull down, which is pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here today. Excuse makers. So, the main thing about them, they bug me. I'm not a big fan of excuse makers. Now, of course, I have to preface this with saying that there are things that are literally out of your control. That there are some things that just happen to happen that you can't really control for. I'm not going to knock those people that just happen to have that happen, because it happens to everybody. I think that there are things that just get in the way. Let's say you're going somewhere and all of a sudden, all the roads are closed. You're doing one thing and then all of a sudden it's closed. Or B, they're not there anymore. There are certain situations in which case it makes total sense, in where you are kind of fucked over by the universe, not necessarily your own doing, but also most of the time people will immediately charge back with the idea that, oh, you should have prepared or whatever. Sometimes even if you prepare, there are things that are just straight up out of your control. There's not much you can do. But with that being said, most of the time, this isn't accurate to describe excuse makers. Most of the people who actually have this happen to them are trying for the most part. It's usually the repeat offenders that get me personally, that those people that for some reason every single time over and over again try to make excuses for their shitty behaviors or their lack of reasoning or their lack of preparedness or their reasons why they cannot do X, Y, or Z. You can see this a lot in things like weight loss or fitness or
goal reaching or things like that. People will make these excuses to try to make it so that the responsibility or the onus of the thing that they're trying to do is not truly upon them. Oh, they happened to be in town, so we had to go out and get some food, of course. Oh, this person came over, so I couldn't go to the gym immediately after. Oh, I was feeling kind of depressed, so I couldn't work on anything for the last 6 months. I understand maybe like the last one. I kind of understand that in a sense, but also maybe working on stuff would get you out of the depression. Maybe that would be a key thing, but that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. But for me personally, I just don't find it a trait that most people like. I think that other people that are excuse makers hang out with other excuse makers, if that makes any sense. It's not something that is great to have to default to. I think a lot of people end up defaulting to it because it's such an easy thing to default to, because realistically, putting the onus of blame on yourself is such a hard and difficult task for so many people, just taking accountability. And it sucks that we live in such an age where we can give up accountability so quickly and easily in all different aspects of life. I mean, realistically, we only have to go so far as to blaming either social media or fast food or convenience, quote unquote, things like that, in order for there to be a lack of reasoning, or medical things. Maybe we know a little too much about everything, and because of that, we can use that as an excuse. I mean, hell, there are probably some people out there that would say that because of the way that the moon is patterned this day, that is the reason why they couldn't make rent on time, or something along those lines, you know? Now that Venus is ascending, I won't be able to go to work anymore. You know, those types of things. It sounds ridiculous, but if you take it to the nth degree, that's basically what happens with a lot of people. They will find things. That's why they bug me so much, is because they will search and seek and try to find something in order to excuse their whatever thing that they're trying to do, whether it be weight loss or anything like that, to try to make it so it's not their fault. And in reality, it's their fault. It's just not even that hard. I wouldn't even necessarily be that mad if they just said, I fucked up. Boom. But the fact that you would try to make it something else's fault makes it so it's even worse. And I think that's what these people don't understand, is that most of the time people would rather hear you say, oh, I just fucked up, rather than, oh, this thing or that thing or whatever other thing might get in the way is just what makes it so much worse, because you understand that you're just lying to me. Just don't even try. I think that's the basis of it, really, is the fact that they are trying to lie and get out of the idea or taking responsibility of just fucking up. That's it. I feel like 99% of people would be fine if they just said, hey, I fucked up, bro. Sorry. And that's it. And actually tried. But that's a whole other subject, was the accountability afterwards, because there's only so many times that somebody can mess up, right? There's so many excuses before another person just kind of gives up on them. They get fired or they just move on, because at a certain point, you're going to have to take accountability. But I think most people would be okay with just saying, hey, I done goofed, instead of saying something along the lines of, Mars was in ascending, so I wasn't able to resist the cheeseburger's lure. You know, I'm just so crazy about it. Things like that. Very asinine, but true. And God forbid if you have an actual medical condition, because you are fucked. Because after a while, if you gotta actually let people see you be fucked, because I have a feeling that a lot of people after a while don't like having to deal with it. And it sucks saying that, but realistically, it's honestly true. A lot of people will be like, oh, let me guess, after a while, because there's a certain point where, yes, those things are unfortunate and will get in your way. But also at the same time, you have to not try to let it get in your way as much as humanly possible. It's a give and take with that type of stuff. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that because it's obviously something that's kind of out of their control, obviously. But you kind of have to balance that one out a little bit more so, and be more self-responsible than regular people because of that thing. because you don't want to let that become your reasoning for things to go down or slide down. And that is the ultimate thing. That's like, you have it probably the hardest because you have to make sure that it doesn't go along with that.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. So I'm feeling I'm just tired. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here. Excuse makers. Personally, I can understand if you're, if something happens, it's not that huge of a deal. I understand it. Things do happen. Life gets in the way. I'm not going to say that these people are, people who make excuses at all are just terrible, but there are some people that you can tell where it's just what they do in their nature. And thus, those are the types of people that you can really separate yourself from in your life. You can get them away from you because realistically, they're willing to throw you under the bus the moment that they have to. And they aren't necessarily good people after a while, because after a while, they will find things to excuse whatever behavior they may or may not be exerting, whether it be good or bad. Most likely, it'll probably be bad at a certain point where they might be infantilizing themselves a little too much, just like, I'm too young, I'm X or Y, or whatever excuse that they make. It's very interesting that these people will not really self-reflect on what's going on in their life and instead will sit there and try to come up with random things to say that is the reason why. And I generally have a distaste for these types of people, and I think most people do, but I feel like a lot of people don't want to call them out on it because they feel like that is wrong and people have like different hardships in life and all this other stuff. And I understand that, but at a certain point, enough is enough. You got to actually put your foot down and, say something about these things. If you aren't hard about these types of things, about being hard-nosed or hard-lined about certain things like excuses, people will just walk all over you. And that's kind of what's happening. And you can kind of see it in certain laws and certain places, certain states where people will just kind of do whatever the hell they want, really, because there's no real consequence. The consequence is you go to jail. You go to jail for a couple hours, then you come back. That's it. Nothing. So that's just even in the broader sense of the term. But I understand it just locally. It's just more of an annoyance because it's like there's always some type of get out of jail card. It's very hard to find people that will just say, it's my fault, I'm sorry. That for some reason, that phrase is just not in a lot of people's dictionary. Or I'm lazy, like just genuine, like I do this, I do X, I do Y, and a genuine reason. And then also try to change that. The other part is people will say it and then never actually do anything to change it. And that's a whole other subject in a way, but I'll touch upon it here, where people will just, they'll say something but do absolutely no action behind it. And those people are just as bad, because then, all right, you acknowledge that you have an issue, but then you just don't do anything about it, which is paramount to you just having the issue. It's to nothing. You're just doing shit, and it sucks because if you know somebody like this, there's not really much you can do except for just sit and watch until the train crashes and then hope to God that they actually make it out on the other side a changed person, because most of the time people have to learn the lesson the hard way. And that will probably be the next, maybe we'll do that in a couple episodes. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one is a random, but some subject matter that I did want to talk about eventually, so I did want to discuss it. But please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please stay safe out there. Stay cool out there. Keep it heavy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.